But the reality is actually it's quite consistent. They didn't actually want to ban Russia. In 54, when West Germany were allowed back into the World Cup, they weren't allowed to have people who served in the Nazi forces during World War II. Have some moral courage and boycott Israel. Boycott their club teams exactly like they did Russia. And there's nothing but cowardice left. The only reason Mohamed Salah spoke out was because George Galloway went on a 30-minute rant about him.
After Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the so-called international community came in unison and unanimously condemned Russia's actions. And then, obviously, there were sanctions. And very soon after that, the Russians were banned from a whole plethora of competitions and global sporting events. I've actually got a list here of a few of them. Obviously, there's the Eurovision, Paralympics, there is football, Formula One, athletics, tennis, badminton, baseball, basketball, biathlon, canoeing, chess, and the list goes on and on and on. So you see here a clear message by the world, or so-called the international community, to Russia that their actions were wrong. Now, after 2 years of genocide and extermination by the Israeli state, only recently has there begun a call to end Israel's participation in certain global competitions. However, at this stage, the ability for Israel to continue participating as if everything's okay, as if it's happy days, might change very soon, and it might come to an end very soon. To discuss this, I'm joined by political strategist and human rights activist Ashish Prashar. Ashish, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So I think the first question that is on everyone's mind and has been on everyone's mind for the last 2 years, how is it that the Russians got banned almost immediately, while after almost 2 years, the Israelis still enjoy the ability to compete in a different, in a whole bunch of different events worldwide?
So look, everybody for the last 2 years has called out FIFA and UEFA's hypocrisy on them banning Russia and not banning Israel. But the reality is actually it's quite consistent. They didn't actually want to ban Russia. Infantino and Chevron didn't think that banning people killing Ukrainian children was any different to Palestinian children at the time, frankly. They only banned Russia because of a football technicality, the integrity of the game, and they had to protect the integrity of the game. What happened on the second day of the invasion, 12 European countries, led by Sweden and Poland, instituted a boycott of Russia. Sounds funny because, we've been calling for boycotts for a long time in a lot of arenas. They instituted a boycott of Russia, forcing UEFA and FIFA on the fourth day to actually suspend Russia. It was a European Football Federation drive. And that's where the power of all this is, right? The federations basically took control from their governing body and said, we won't play them and we won't play their club teams. And what that actually impacted was the integrity of the game. Competitions like qualifiers and club tournaments could not go forward. Players couldn't transfer. So many other things were impacted. And of course, at the end of that, revenue is impacted. While we don't know the amount that would have been impacted, it would have certainly been impacted. So that's why they acted really quickly thereafter. And that's what we're doing right now. And what we're trying to do is focus our energy and focus this campaign that we're launching on to force European football federations to take responsibility and have some moral courage and boycott Israel and boycott their club teams exactly like they did Russia. We're adding one more thing. Ban Israeli players from playing anywhere in Europe. And the reason that's different, the reason we're asking for it is everyone serves in the IDF. We already know that, right? And we don't know what crimes those individuals have committed. And there should be no normalcy in abnormal times with people who have participated in this genocidal society. And there is precedent for this. In 54, when West Germany were allowed back into the World Cup after World War II, there was they weren't allowed to have people who served in the Nazi forces during World War II.
What would you say is the importance of getting Israel and Israeli players banned from playing football at FIFA, etc.?
Well, look, everything is normalization, right? It's not just economic. It's not just political. It's about being accepted into global culture. It's about being welcomed in spaces of art, music, sport that bring you in front of the public and show you as a normal society amongst other people. The reason cultural boycotts is so important is because it has a detrimental impact to a country's not just reputation, but its ability to navigate the world. And everybody then isolates them, right? And that's why they have such a big impact. You only have to think about apartheid South Africa. The sports boycott was huge. And it's the reason the Israeli occupation spends so much money trying to retain its position in all these institutions, buying board seats at FIFA, making sure they have investments in football clubs all over Europe. So they're intertwined and interconnected so they can never be thrown out. Well, we've gone too far now. 2 years of a genocide, 2 years of an open genocide, by the way. And no matter how much money they have entwined and how much normalcy they think they have, or how many board seats they bought in these institutions, it's really important that these European federations act to hold any moral ground they ever thought any moral position they ever thought they had in the first place.
Can you tell us a bit about the origins of your campaign, the background?
Yeah, so look, we've been working on this for quite some time, and the reason, we wanted to know really what happened with Russia, so we delved into it. So through some relationships we had, we found out that it was a European country boycott that led to this, and the origins basically were like working with people who also worked in the sports boycott during the apartheid regime in South Africa, who gave us great counsel on like, we really need to change tactics. We really need to move with the times because, we've had this campaign to, get rid of Israel and FIFA running at a FIFA level for 12 years, but it's done nothing. And it's not a knock on the people who've organized that. The one thing that's come from that is the organization of fans. That is a beautiful thing. It should never be put down. But it doesn't mean, that's the only way to get this done. The goal is to get them out of football by any means necessary. And if we're talking about any means necessary, we have to change tactics, right? We have a guy sitting in Switzerland, neon Switzerland, who doesn't care that you protest every week. He doesn't care that you turn up. He doesn't care that you chant, you are the children of Gaza. But then we're taking it one step further, targeting people who are accessible, right? What we're calling on is fans and people of conscience across Europe to flood their football federations. That is by phone, by mail, by email, but also be there every day and make sure the football federations and the heads that run it know that they are complicit in genocide unless they boycott Israel. And this is a bit more like groundswell tactics, right? This is about actual pressure, but we're also pressuring people. Remember this, we're pressuring people who are not used to being protested. We're pressuring people who are not used to their country knowing that they actually have the power to make this decision, right? You only have to look what's happened recently with the cycling in Spain. The public shut down the event. Now you imagine tens of thousands, if not more, fans demoing and protesting outside the Football Federation of Spain. Now they know the guy in there can actually cancel Israel. Could you imagine 100,000 Roma fans and Lazio fans going together to demonstrate outside the Football Federation of Italy? A country where, by the way, the coaches have already signed a letter saying they don't want to play Israel. A country where the Italian coach already recently just told, he basically went on air and told them fuck off. The country is already there. The problem is the target is wrong. And, they always say if you repeat something again and again, it's a sign of insanity. We've gone down as far as we can with the targeting of FIFA, with the red card campaign. What we need to do is one step further. You've mobilized us, but now let's take it further and find targets that could break this inertia where nothing is moving with FIFA.
You mentioned there the Spanish example of the protesters going in and stopping the cycling event. Now, there was some pushback from politicians in Spain, despite Spain being one of the more pro-Palestine, anti-genocide countries in Europe. Do you expect any pushback from your campaign, from either football officials or politicians?
I expect it from politicians. I think football officials are going to try and remain. I think football officials might try and not draw any more attention on their complicity at this point. They know the fans are angry. They know the fans are mobilized in a lot of countries, and football fans have a creative way of protesting. Let's just say that. And I think the reality is that if you mobilize them and get them at a target, yes, they are going to have to act pretty quickly. Look, we're already nearly there, right? We have, again, federations that are getting pressure from their institutions, whether it be coaching institutions, whether it be players, whether it be already some other grassroots organizations. What we're trying to do is make sure that all of this happens simultaneously. Here's the key. No football federation is going to boycott Israel by themselves, right? No one's giving up a World Cup place or being penalized. What we need to do is give them cover. We are protesting and organizing demonstrations in over 10 countries now, simultaneously, where they demand that their federation president acts. That most federations, by the way, in Europe have executive power, meaning that the head of the federation can institute a boycott of a country, club, player, anything they want unanimously. So what we're doing is targeting not just the federation head, right? And then my goal is, in the end, what every other person's goal here is to get Israel kicked out of football. But we're using something we know that is achievable and attainable because we're going after individuals, institutions that have never had this ferocity of anger against them. And that is what we're unleashing on them.
Why do you believe that now is the right time? And also, some people might be asking, why has it taken so long to get a campaign like this going?
Well, the answer to the second question is lack of radical imagination. Like, I think the problem we have is sometimes we're so committed to this thing. We've been told it's the only thing. This is the way to walk into this thing. We have to keep changing. We have to move. We have to keep adapting, keep moving forward. I think I first spoke about how Russia was actually thrown out over a year or something ago, calling on people to target their federations. People didn't, think, they want to continue to focus on the red card thing. So we ended up designing and building a campaign of our own. Working with the likes of Richard Falk, Craig McIver, people that who are legends and, who have been outspoken in their own way for Palestine, working with unions and working with football fan groups from Ireland to France to Milan. People believe in this. They have a target they can go for. They believe in applying pressure here. They believe that their country should act, right? If the governing bodies refuse to act and want us to remain complicit, and they have no control over those individuals, they believe their country should no longer have Israelis step foot on their football pitches. They believe their country shouldn't be complicit by normalizing with that genocidal entity and its football players.
I see one of the names that you have supporting you is Manchester United legend, French footballer Eric Cantona. And obviously he's been an avid supporter of Palestinian rights for many years. But it seems as though he is one of the very few football voices who have joined this campaign. Why do you think that is? Why do you think not many more sports personalities have spoken out?
I think a misplaced sense of fear. And I say misplaced. The sport needs them more than they need the sport. But in a weird way, they think they're going to lose everything if they speak out. But they've been told by many people that they're going to lose everything. I mean, it's the same as cultural artists, right? Like, think of the likes of Stormzy and all these other individuals that go around, get there, but don't get there in the end. Or other people, right, who don't speak out entirely. The belief that they're going to lose everything. One, by the way, these people and individuals earn tons. And I think we're beyond the idea of forgiveness on this, right? And I don't mean forgiveness because there's something wrong. I mean, guys, come on. It's 2 years. You've all seen the same images we've seen, right? Step up. Talk about it. Look, people will support you. The public will support you. And there's nothing but cowardice left. The only reason Mohamed Salah spoke out was because George Galloway went on a 30-minute rant about him not speaking out. And all he did was who killed him, right? That was it. That's all you got out of him. And in his case, he's more powerful than football. The Premier League needs him more than he needs the Premier League. They market to a whole continent through his playing in the Premier League. If he didn't, they wouldn't be able to. And there is a sense of cowardice. That's why this campaign, has been derived from focusing on fans, focusing on unions, focusing on all these mobilized people. Because, if the stars don't want to do it, if they don't want to step up, if they want to continue to be cowards, the fans will do it for them. The fans will take control. Because the fans shouldn't have to watch genocidal players walk on their pitches in Europe who've possibly killed children, who've possibly tortured people, possibly raped people, possibly murdered people, freely kick a ball around. And you, by the way, playing against them? How are you comfortable with that? And only a handful of people have spoken out, right? You mentioned Cantona, but we're talking about Pep Guardiola, Roberto Mancini, Lineker. Like, where are you all? Where are you all? And also, by the way, all the ones who have spoken out, right? Like, also continue. It shouldn't just be a blip. You should keep going, right? So there is a little bit of disappointment, the fact that footballers, and you think of the history of sport and power, right? Muhammad Ali speaks to that, right? People talk about not just his objecting serving in Vietnam, but remember, he went and did a hostage negotiation exchange in Iraq. He put his life on the line many times in his career for real belief in humanity, real belief. And we're sitting here waiting for a bunch of millionaires to decide if they can post about Palestine. So we're taking control. I want footballers to support this campaign. I want coaches to support this campaign. I want them to lead this campaign. But in the absence of that, I want the people who this game belongs to take control. And the people who fill the football stands are more important than the stars that play that pitch, because they are the reason the game is what it is. They are the reason. They make the chants. They make the atmosphere. They are the culture of football. And it's actually appropriate that they're leading the charge on this campaign.
Are you confident that this campaign will succeed?
Yes, it's going to succeed. I don't actually believe in it. If the fans mobilize and they keep going for these targets, yes, they can change a president of a football association if that person decides they're not built for this. They can't keep doing that, though. Not forever. If the fans mobilize, if the people of conscience mobilize, and we continue to pile on pressure day in, day out, they will collapse. Society's already going there. We're already seeing, you mentioned the Eurovision stuff. It's happening, right? The UN will declare this a genocide. And at that point, everybody who's continuing their participation with Israel is complicit. Yes, legally too, because they're supposed to uphold our whatever's left of international law, right? So unlike politicians and governments who might pretend that none of those things matter, like if the UN rules it's a genocide, football authorities aren't built for that legal action, right? And they should be chased if they do not side with the UN's ruling that is pending. They should be chased legally. They should go after them individually as they have executive power. So the reality is, I think if football fans and people are conscious keep this pressure up, if football fans make their lives hell, frankly, right? This isn't just about posting at the federation and demonstrating. It's making sure that wherever they go, all their social media, everything they see is that they're complicit and they should be held accountable.
Do you have any final messages to the people of conscience watching, eager to do something new?
First thing you can do is mobilize outside your football federation everywhere in Europe. Flood it. Don't stop on day 1, day 2, day 3. They are not politicians. They don't sit behind guards in the White House or Downing Street or the Champs, in Paris. They are accessible. They are justifiably a target that we should be protesting. They should be demonstrated and they should be hounded wherever they go, because they have the power, and they've had the power all this time to boycott Israel. They've knowingly hid and deflected and made sure it's UEFA and FIFA that are put at the center of this conversation. And in a more moral world, FIFA and UEFA would have acted, but we do not live in that world. Nothing you can say or have we seen from our governments and our institutions show we live in that world. So in the absence of that, flood your football federation, target those presidents, make sure they know that we know that they have the power to boycott Israel, and demand that they boycott Israel, boycott their club teams, and ban Israeli players from stepping foot on your football pitches.
Ashish, a pleasure as ever. Thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck with the campaign.